I thought it was a performance review. That's how all catastrophes begin, calendar invites with neutral subject lines. The conference room at the Earth Trade Embassy looked sterile enough to be harmless. Frosted glass walls. A hovering translation orb. The faint scent of recycled oxygen and diplomatic anxiety. Across the table sat my supervisor, Senior Liaison XYRVAL of the Galactic Union. She was tall, poised, wrapped in her sleek environmental suit that shimmered like liquid graphite under the lights. She folded her hands. "You have been evaluated," she said calmly. "You are worthy." I blinked. There are moments in life where your brain simply refuses to process incoming information. This was one of them. "I'm sorry," I said carefully. "I'm what?" "Worthy," she repeated, as if clarifying a quarterly earnings report. "Genetically and temperamentally suitable for long-term propagation alignment." Propagation alignment. I work in interstellar logistics compliance. I alphabetize trade tariffs. I once strained my back lifting a printer. I am not propagation alignment material. My mind, however, did not latch onto the bureaucratic phrasing. It latched onto one word. Breed. I coughed. Is this a performance metric?" "In a sense." She tilted her head slightly. The translation orb hummed as it adjusted for tone. "Your adaptive resilience, moderate physical durability, and hormonal balance indicate high compatibility with my species' symbiotic continuity protocols." Symbiotic. Continuity. Protocols. I had posted one shirtless selfie last year. One. It was taken after 2 months of mild gym attendance and excellent lighting. I'd forgotten about it. Apparently, the Galactic Union had not. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," I said, attempting diplomacy. "I'm just here to review freight corridors." "Yes," she replied. "Your modest self-assessment further confirms eligibility." That was not reassuring. She stood. And then she reached for the seam of her suit. Now, on Earth, when your alien supervisor stands up during a performance review and begins unzipping her clothing, there are exactly 0 interpretations that lead to paperwork. The seal hissed open. The suit parted. I prepared for scandal, for seduction, for something HR would absolutely not cover. Instead, a soft glow spilled into the room. From beneath the suit emerged delicate strands of bioluminescent filaments embedded along her arms and collarbone, pulsing gently like constellations mapped across living skin. And then, a mist. Not smoke. Not steam. Spores. They drifted outward in slow, glittering spirals, luminous and delicate, like floating legal confetti. "What is happening?" I asked, standing so abruptly my chair tipped backward. "Commencing preliminary contract dispersal," she said pleasantly. The spores touched my sleeve. Where they landed, holographic text flickered into existence. Article 1, Shared Lineage CO Signatory Status. Another spore brushed my shoulder. Article 4, Mutual Resource Interweaving. A cluster settled against my chest. Clause 7b, 3-century Diplomatic Continuity Agreement. I slapped at them. They did not slap back. They attached. "This is not standard review procedure," I protested. "It is for my species," she replied, stepping closer. "Reproduction is primarily legal." That sentence did not reduce my panic. "Reproduction should not involve airborne paperwork. The spores only bond if compatibility is reciprocally detected," she explained. "You need only provide a thumbprint and mild hormonal confirmation to finalize." Thumbprint. Hormonal confirmation. Finalize. My survival instincts, tragically shaped by human romantic comedies and late-night science fiction, interpreted this as abduction. Forced matrimony. Tentacled destiny. "Nope," I said. And I ran. I bolted from the conference room, bioluminescent clauses trailing behind me like glowing sticky notes of doom. The embassy corridor stretched ahead, diplomats flattening themselves against the walls as I sprinted past with floating contract fragments orbiting my head. "Please return," XYRVAL called after me, not sounding angry, just confused. Your panic accelerates clause activation. That was the least comforting sentence I had ever heard. The translation orb zipped after us, broadcasting helpful updates. Preliminary consent inferred through elevated adrenaline resonance. That is not consent! I shouted. A spore landed on my wrist. Addendum 12, Flight Response recognized as ceremonial acceptance. Ceremonial acceptance? I skidded around a corner, nearly colliding with a gelatinous trade auditor from Sector 9. He blinked at the glowing text forming around me. Congratulations, he gurgled. I did not congratulate anything. Behind me, Xyrval moved with infuriating calm, her luminous markings pulsing brighter as more spores dispersed. They weren't aggressive. They were organized. Structured. Efficient. Like weaponized bureaucracy. I reached the lobby just as embassy alarms began to chime, not emergency sirens, but compliance alerts. The main display screen flickered to life. Cross-species shared lineage agreement initiated, it announced helpfully. Below it, my name appeared. Followed by hers. Followed by a projected duration. 300 years. My lungs forgot how to function. I require only your thumbprint, she said gently, stepping into the lobby's center. The spores swirled between us, weaving lines of shimmering legal language in the air. Your genetic markers indicate remarkable adaptability. It is a compliment of the highest order. This is not how humans do compliments. I wheezed. How do humans reproduce? She asked, genuinely curious. That is not the point. A final cluster of spores drifted toward my hand. I tried to pull away, but one brushed my thumb. The holographic contract pulsed. Biometric acknowledgement detected. The embassy fell silent. The glowing text solidified, rearranging into an ornate emblem I didn't recognize. Preliminary binding complete. The translation orb chimed cheerfully. I stared at my illuminated thumb. Across from me, Xyrval's expression softened, not predatory, not triumphant. Relieved. You will not regret this, she said. I looked up at the massive display screen, at the words 3 centuries shared lineage now stamped with diplomatic seals. I had walked into a performance review. I had sprinted through a hallway of glowing legal spores. And somehow, in under 10 minutes, I had agreed, accidentally, hormonally, ceremonially, to something that sounded suspiciously like interstellar marriage paperwork. I didn't know it yet, but Earth's legal department was about to faint. And I, apparently, had just become honorary royalty. By the time I regained full oxygen intake, the embassy lobby had transformed into what can only be described as a courtroom designed by glow sticks. The contract wasn't hovering anymore. It was anchored. 3-dimensional glyphs rotated slowly above us, layers of clauses folding in on themselves like luminous origami. My name pulsed in human standard font. Hers appeared beside it in elegant Valkyrie script that looked like a constellation trying to sign a mortgage. Tell me that's a screensaver, I muttered. It is binding, Xyrval said gently. That was when Earth's legal team arrived. 5 attorneys in identical gray suits stormed through the security barrier like caffeine-fueled vultures. Leading them was Director Hammond, a woman who once voided a Martian mining contract using nothing but footnotes and pure spite. She looked at the glowing 300-year agreement. She looked at me. She pinched the bridge of her nose. What? She asked slowly. Did you sign? I didn't sign anything, I said. I inhaled aggressively. Hammond stepped forward, tablet in hand. Under the Interstellar Cooperative Compliance Charter, no Earth citizen may enter binding matrimonial. It is not matrimonial, Xyrval corrected calmly. It is symbiotic administrative reproduction. That is not better, Hammond snapped. The lawyers circled the hologram, scanning clauses. Every time one attempted to flag a provision for dispute, the spores reacted. They brightened, rearranged, and generated new addendums in response. Objection registered, one attorney said. The contract shimmered. Addendum 48, Challenge to clause strengthens mutual intent. Stop objecting! Hammond hissed. Another lawyer tried a technicality. Consent requires informed understanding. The spores pulsed. Supplemental note. Subject demonstrated awareness of breveworthy classification prior to flight. All eyes turned to me. I thought it meant something else, I protested. The translation orb chimed helpfully. Flight response in Valkyrie tradition signifies ritual acknowledgement of union gravity. Hammond's stare could have melted tungsten. You ran. Yes. In their culture, that's foreplay paperwork. That is not how humans foreplay. XYR Val tilted her head again, luminous markings dimming slightly in what I was beginning to recognize as confusion. Your distress suggests misunderstanding. My species reproduces primarily through contractual lineage weaving. There is no compulsory physical component. The lawyers paused. No physical component? Hammond asked carefully. Correct. Shared lineage agreements bind economic futures, genetic archives, and diplomatic succession. Emotional compatibility is statistically advantageous but not mandatory. I blinked. Wait. Emotional compatibility isn't required? She looked at me directly. It is preferred. There was something in her tone that didn't sound procedural. Hammond exhaled sharply. Duration? 3 centuries, XYRVAL said. Assets? Joint trade authority, inheritance rights on Valkyrie Prime, shared oversight of resource corridors, and honorary status within the Dominion. Silence swallowed the lobby. One of the junior lawyers whispered, He's a duke. I am not a duke, I said immediately. The hologram flickered. Title recognition, CO Architect of Continuity. Hammond scrolled frantically through her tablet. We will contest under duress. The spores flared again. Duress invalidated. Subject exhibited voluntary hormonal resonance. Every head turned toward me again. I felt my face heat. What does that mean? XYRVAL answered softly. Our spores only bond when biochemical alignment is mutual. Your endocrine response indicated receptivity. I stared at her. You're telling me, I said slowly, that my body subconsciously agreed? Yes. Hammond closed her tablet with the finality of a coffin lid. We are in trouble. The lawyers retreated to whisper in furious clusters. Words like precedent, sovereignty, and accidental monarchy floated through the air. Meanwhile, I found myself face to face with XYRVAL as the chaos buzzed around us. You could have explained this better, I said. I believed I had, she replied. Breveworthy is a high distinction. It acknowledges adaptability, resilience, and cooperative instinct. Among my people, it is deeply respectful. That word does not mean respectful on Earth. I am learning this. Her suit remained partially open, the bioluminescent patterns along her skin glowing more gently now. Up close, they weren't intimidating. They were intricate. Beautiful in a way that felt structured, intentional. I did not intend to frighten you, she said. I thought you were about to abduct me into alien matrimony. We do not abduct, she replied, almost offended. We negotiate. I let out a weak laugh despite myself. Your negotiation involves airborne contracts. Yes. That's insane. It is efficient. Behind us, Hammond returned, looking as though she'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. The contract cannot be voided without triggering a trade collapse, she said bluntly. The Valkyrie Dominion has already received notice. As if summoned by narrative timing alone, the embassy's main display shifted. Incoming transmission, Valkyrie Dominion. A towering armored figure appeared on screen, flanked by banners bearing sigils that looked suspiciously like stylized dumbbells crossed over planetary rings. Earth Alpha recognized. The figure boomed. Shared lineage initiated. Ritual combat authorization pending. I blinked. Ritual what? XYRVAL stiffened slightly. This is unexpected. The armored figure continued. Human specimen classified as prime breeding champion. Dominion requests ceremonial duel to formalize dominance hierarchy. Hammond turned to me very slowly. What did you post online? One selfie, I said. It had good lighting. The screen zoomed in on my year-old gym photo, now labeled Earth Warrior Display. Val looked at it thoughtfully. You appear formidable. I was flexing next to a houseplant. The Valkyrie commander nodded approvingly. Alpha humility confirmed. Combat style designated, restrained power. I do not have restrained power. The transmission ended with a flourish of metallic percussion. Silence returned. Hammond whispered, They think you're some kind of fertility gladiator. Val studied me with renewed curiosity. Your species documents physical exertion publicly? It's called social media. She considered this gravely. Then you have declared ritual readiness. I dragged a hand down my face. I lift weights so my back doesn't hurt. And yet, she said softly, you ran toward uncertainty rather than exploiting advantage. You did not attempt to claim dominion. You questioned the contract. That's because I was terrified. Courage often resembles terror, she replied. Something shifted in the air between us. The spores, now settled into faint markings along my sleeve, glowed warmer instead of brighter. Hammond cleared her throat. We need to prepare for this duel. I don't duel, I said. Apparently you do, she replied. Val closed the final seam of her suit, though the luminous patterns beneath remained faintly visible through translucent fabric. I will assist you, she said. Assist me how? Her expression turned solemn. In Valkyrie tradition, mating alliances begin with ritual combat. My stomach dropped. And, she added thoughtfully, I may have unintentionally signaled willingness to participate. I stared at her. You're kidding. I do not understand the humor in this context. Somewhere deep in the embassy systems, the contract chimed again. Ceremonial challenge acknowledged. I had accidentally signed a 3-century lineage pact. Earth couldn't void it. The Dominion thought I was a warrior king. And now, apparently, I was expected to fight my own supervisor to prove I deserved reproductive paperwork. This was no longer a performance review. This was interstellar gym culture gone catastrophically official. By the time the Valkyrie envoy's transmission ended, my brain had already filed the situation under things that will definitely kill me eventually. I was standing in the embassy training hall, which had been hastily converted into a ceremonial duel arena. The floors shimmered with protective force fields. The walls displayed holographic sigils that pulsed in rhythm with the hum of alien drones overhead. And in the center of it all, Val stood calmly, as if nothing about this situation were unusual. She removed her environmental suit again, but this time it wasn't seduction. It was combat armor. My pulse sped up just from the sight of the glowing filaments shifting along her arms and shoulders. This is normal in your culture? I asked weakly. No. In Valkyrie tradition, this is the opening of ritual combat, she said, adjusting a strap on her shoulder. Your species does not observe this? Curious. I backed up a step. No. Humans don't do combat rituals before paperwork. Her luminous eyes tilted slightly. I understand. But the Dominion misinterpreted the shared lineage agreement. They assume combat is the preferred courtship method. I blinked. Courtship method? You mean mating? No, she said firmly. It is ritualized evaluation of skill and suitability. Physical dominance symbolizes reliability and adaptive resilience. They associate bravery and persistence with reproductive value. I stared at her. So you're telling me that my shirtless selfie somehow made me a fertility gladiator? Yes, she replied. With remarkable clarity. I collapsed backward onto a force field cushion and groaned. I lift weights so my back doesn't hurt. Behind me, holographic monitors flashed with my year-old gym photo. The Dominion had archived it as prime reference material. My arms looked bigger than they really were. The Valkyrie analysts were nodding with approval from across the galaxy. Somehow, flexing in sunlight for 15 seconds had turned me into a legend. Val floated closer, her movements precise. You appear formidable. In the display, your body language conveys dominance tempered by humility. I have no idea what that means, I said, rubbing my temples. I literally just smiled awkwardly next to a ficus. They interpret your expression as controlled aggression. This is the foundation of dad bod combat. I nearly choked. Dad bod combat? Yes, she said, with the gravity of someone explaining Interstellar. Diplomacy. A style defined by relaxed posture, slight overhang, and apparent unpredictability. Highly respected by Valkyrie analysts for psychological disruption. I stared at her in disbelief. So my lazily sculpted gym physique is now a lethal martial art? Potentially, she replied. You may wish to participate. I scrambled to my feet. I do not wish to participate. Val gave me a pointed look. Refusal is not recommended. Flight response may be interpreted as further commitment. I swallowed. Flight response. Already tried that. Didn't work. Then, with a resigned groan, I nodded. Fine. But if I die, it's on your species' highly misinterpreted legalese. She gave a faint, almost human-like smile. You misunderstand. I will coach you. We moved to the center of the arena. She gestured for me to assume a stance. I tried, but my coordination resembled a newborn fawn on roller skates. She raised an eyebrow. Interesting. Unconventional. But effective. Valkyrie analysts will interpret this as unpredictability, enhancing your status. I hit the ground with an ungraceful thud and flailed. Somehow, she did the same. The glowing filaments on her arms whirred as she lunged. I ducked, tripped over my own feet, and ended up in a heap again. The crowd of embassy staff, mostly faceless drones silhouetted behind force fields, gasped and chuckled. Your opponent is struggling, Val commented calmly. Struggling? I am a human disaster, I wheezed. Yes. But Valkyrie doctrine interprets human chaos as strategic genius. I blinked. So my panic is now an advantage? Yes, she said, tilting her head. You are unpredictable. That is admired. We circled each other awkwardly. I swung an arm. She leaned gracefully aside and accidentally somersaulted over me. My flailing caused her to stumble. We collided, fell into a holographic column, bounced off the force field, and landed entangled on the floor. The embassy erupted in laughter, or at least, what I assumed was laughter. Val's eyes flickered in a way that suggested amusement. Somehow, even in defeat, she retained poise. I was a writhing heap of panic, sweat, and accidental flair. After several more rounds of this chaotic slapstick duel, I noticed something. Each time she moved, she offered gentle guidance. Shift your weight, she suggested. Your center of mass is misaligned. Try to anticipate unpredictability with calm observation. I stared at her, soaked in sweat, and realized I was listening. Really listening. Not out of fear, but curiosity. She wasn't just a procedural enforcer. She was teaching me, patiently, laughing at my incompetence, yet not condescending. During one particularly clumsy tumble, we ended up face to face on the floor. I tried to scramble away, but her hand gently rested on my shoulder. Your resilience is admirable, she said softly. Humans adapt quickly under stress. I selected you partly because of this. I froze. You selected me? Yes, she replied. Not only for protocol, but because of your adaptive responses. Your emotional intelligence, chaotic though it may be, is rare in this region of the galaxy. I wanted to protest, but I couldn't find words. My cheeks burned, not from exertion, but from the realization that this alien supervisor, who could reduce me to glowing contract debris at will, was looking at me appreciatively. The duel continued, but the tension shifted. Every stumble, every awkward swing, became a shared joke. The chaos no longer felt like imminent doom. It felt like connection. Finally, XYRVAL stepped back. Her glowing filaments dimmed into a steady hum. The arena's holographic display pulsed one last time. A large emblem formed in the air above us, Earth Prime Champion of Fertility. I sank to my knees, staring at the hologram. I won? Yes, she said. Congratulations. Your species will now be regarded as capable of remarkable adaptability. Your unconventional combat style is legendary. I wiped my face. I am sweaty, confused, and mildly traumatized. Also celebrated, she added with the faintest curve of her lips. Somewhere in the back, the embassy staff clapped politely. I realized then that I had survived ritual combat, unintentionally impressed an alien species, and earned their respect. Even better, amidst all the chaos, I felt something else, something warm and unfamiliar, a spark of admiration and perhaps something approaching, attraction. I straightened up and faced XYRVAL, wiping sweat from my brow. So, do we sign more contracts now, or take a break first? She laughed softly, the sound luminous in the still air of the arena. Perhaps a break. You have demonstrated capability, and I wish to discuss mutual agreement for future protocols. I exhaled, realizing that even in this absurd, chaotic, and utterly alien scenario, I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Not just surviving, thriving. And for the first time, I felt a strange confidence. If I could navigate this interstellar dad-bod combat, maybe, just maybe, I could navigate anything, even romance with an alien supervisor who didn't reproduce the way humans thought they did, but somehow, made me feel alive. The crowd, or at least the blinking silhouettes watching from behind force fields, cheered quietly. I wiped my sweaty palms together, ready for whatever absurdity came next. After all, in this galaxy, chaos was the new courtship, and I had accidentally mastered it. After the glow of dad-bod combat faded and the holographic declaration of Earth's champion of fertility stabilized above us, the embassy lobby returned to a semblance of normalcy. Well, as normal as it could be with glowing spores still floating lazily in the air like bureaucratic confetti. My shirt clung to my back, sweat drying into awkward crusts, and my knees still trembled from dodging XYRVAL's surprisingly graceful lunges. Somehow, I had survived, won, and become a symbol of human unpredictability that the Valkyrie Dominion would now celebrate for centuries. Hammond and the rest of the Earth legal team were huddled in a corner, whispering furiously, muttering words like precedent, sovereignty, and entirely unprecedented. I didn't want to eavesdrop, but I couldn't help glancing over to see one of the junior lawyers scribbling furiously in a notebook, probably recording every detail for posthumous court arguments. I was, in essence, canonized as a human oddity, a case study in panic-induced heroism. XYRVAL drifted closer, the soft glow along her skin now dimmed to a calm pulse, and gestured toward the balcony overlooking the alien cityscape visible through the embassy's panoramic window. Come, she said. We should finalize mutual agreements privately. Public procedures can wait. I swallowed nervously. I had survived ritual combat, inadvertently signed a 300-year shared lineage agreement, and somehow earned a title that sounded like a cross between a dukedom and a cosmic lottery prize. And now she wanted to finalize mutual agreements? That sounded dangerously close to adult conversation territory. We stepped onto the balcony, the alien skyline stretching out in a riot of colors, strange spires, and orbital walkways. The wind, or whatever passed for wind in an artificial atmospheric shield, rippled around us. She turned to face me, her luminous eyes softer than any expression I had seen during our combat. You have demonstrated resilience, adaptability, and courage under stress, she said, her voice calm but tinged with something I couldn't name. I stumbled a lot, I admitted. Mostly on my own feet. And yet, she replied, you returned each time. You did not exploit the situation for personal advantage. You questioned the contract, sought understanding, and treated the procedures with respect despite confusion. That is rare among species presented with ceremonial challenge. I swallowed hard. There was an awkward pause, the kind that makes your stomach do backflips and your brain try to negotiate a graceful exit. I couldn't think of anything clever to say. Finally, I blurted, "So, you respect me?" "I do," she said simply. "Not just as a procedural subject, but as an individual capable of judgment and growth. The choice to participate and continue demonstrates compatibility beyond genetic or contractual alignment." Compatibility. That word echoed in my head. I had spent my entire life thinking of compatibility as a human concept, shared hobbies, similar tastes in movies, mutual understanding, but in this moment, it felt cosmic. Literal interstellar alignment, yes, but also emotional resonance. And it made me realize something I hadn't expected: I cared about her. Not in the panic-fueled way I had initially feared, but in a strange, grounding way. I cleared my throat, trying to sound casual. "So, are we like partners now? For the next 3 centuries? She gave a small, almost amused smile. "Partnership is not mandated, but mutual agreement enhances protocol efficiency. Shall we define the terms together?" "Terms?" I asked, trying not to let my pulse betray me. "Yes," she said, lowering her arm to release the last of the lingering spores. "Clauses, mutual consent, emotional parameters, and no more surprise ritual combat." I exhaled in relief. Finally, some good news. We moved back inside, holographic displays hovering in the air. Together, we began revising the original contract. Each clause was debated, renegotiated, and signed with careful thumbprints. Mutual consent was emphasized. Emotional partnership was explicitly included. XYR Val's spores glowed warmly, pulsing as each amendment was completed. The symbiosis of paperwork and trust became oddly intimate, a dance of lights and signatures, and I realized that we were creating something more meaningful than either of us had expected. As we finished the last amendment, the Valkyrie Dominion sent a final acknowledgement, confirming that Earth's representative had voluntarily accepted the shared lineage agreement with newly defined mutual terms. The holographic display shifted to reflect our partnership, no longer imposing obligations beyond our joint consent. The Dominion's ceremonial symbols now felt celebratory, rather than intimidating. I leaned against the balcony railing, taking a deep breath. "So, this is it? We've survived ritual combat, misinterpreted bureaucracy, and accidental interstellar notoriety?" "Yes," she said, stepping beside me. "And we have done so in a manner that demonstrates respect, understanding, and compatibility." I glanced at her, realizing that the glow of her markings now felt less like legal enforcement, and more like gentle reassurance. "You know," I said slowly, "I didn't think I'd ever find myself liking an alien supervisor who reproduces through paperwork." She tilted her head, and the corners of her mouth curved faintly. "And yet here we are." I laughed softly. The sound was awkward, human, and entirely real. "I suppose if humans can accidentally master dad-bod combat and survive 3 centuries of contractual obligations, we can manage this." Her hand reached for mine, and I didn't pull away. For the first time since this entire absurd journey began, I felt calm. No panic. No glowing spores enforcing compliance. Just 2 beings, human and Valkyrie, choosing to move forward together. I squeezed her hand gently. "You know, I think I could get used to this." She gave a small nod, her glow synchronizing with mine in a subtle, comforting rhythm. So could I. The city stretched below us, a tapestry of alien architecture and flickering light. Somewhere deep in the galaxy, the Dominion recognized our union as successful. Earth's legal team could only hope that no further chaos erupted. And I, a human of modest origin, realized that surviving interstellar bureaucracy, ritualized combat, and glowing spores had brought me something far more unexpected than honor or notoriety. I had found partnership, respect, and maybe, in the strangest way imaginable, love. I took a deep breath, glanced at XYRVAL, and whispered under my own breath, "Turns out, paperwork can be romantic." She laughed softly, leaning close. "Yes. As long as both parties signed willingly. And for the first time in centuries, or at least it felt that way, everything was perfectly aligned.